Hi, I'm Jean Nolte, editor at Fonts & Porter.
And I'm Colleen Tauke. I'm the sewing specialist at Fonts & Porter. In this tutorial, we'll show you how to put together blocks that go into the quilt not so square.
Well, this is a fun quilt. It's kind of wonky, and it started out with a bundle of fat eighths. So you need 40 fat eighths, and we're going to make blocks like this, and you can see they are not so square. So the first thing you need to do is look at your cutting diagram in your instructions, and it will show you how to cut each of your fat eighths. So this is the size of a fat eighth. It's about 9 inches tall and 20 inches wide. And your instructions tell you to cut 4 3-inch squares, and then the rest of it you cut
Not so square.
random angles. And it will give you some guidance as to not to get these too skinny, but just check that in the instructions. And so you'll cut each of your fat eighths into pieces like this. 4 of the fat eighths, you'll need to take these 4 squares and set them aside. So you have 4 sets of 4 matching squares. You're going to set those aside for later, but everything else you're going to just use and make it a scrappy quilt.
We're used to cutting such exact things. My suggestion to you is to take the first fat eighth, cut it, relax, and then you can stack up various, a number, 2 or 3, if you got a nice sharp rotary cutter, and cut through a bunch at once. Then it goes pretty quickly.
All right, so we're going to make this block first. You need 36 of these big blocks. So you're going to take one of those 3-inch squares that's left, not the ones you saved.
Nope, put those a long ways away.
And then what you do is you're going to just trim it so it has angled edges, random.
Again, not so square. It's okay. You're just taking little tiny shards off of it just to make them a little bit wonky.
So then we're ready to put this first round around there. So you're going to take one of these, put it across the bottom, and we're going to stitch that on.
Here we're going to use a 1/4-inch seam, and we're leaving it kind of floating off the edge, and you'll see in a minute what we're going to do.
The ends are not so precise. The 1/4-inch seam,
The 1/4-inch seam part,
a little more important.
Stay with that. That'll keep you in the right mindset.
But again, these are not specific dimensions.
We're used to cutting 2 pieces that fit together exactly, and we're not doing that this time.
Nope. Now we're going to just
finger press that open. That looks so strange at first.
Yep, and then I'm going to lay the ruler right along the edge of the center and trim that off. Turn it around,
We're
do the
just
same thing.
extending that line of the piece that was your center. So keep track of which is your center.
All right, then I'm going to give it just a quick press here.
Pressing is one of those things that we think is time consuming, but it keeps our block nice and flat and neat and tidy. So.
All right, now you're going to put the one on this side, I believe.
We're going to add another piece, and it won't make a difference which direction the wider end or the narrower, because these are all varied. So I'm going to lay it on there. And
make sure it extends off the edge a little bit.
It's off the edge, and if you're nervous about that, you can open up and make sure that it's going to extend far enough. It's always that little peek before we sew to make sure we've got it in place. Doesn't take much time. After doing a couple, you go, oh, what was I worried about? It's just the first couple that make you a little nervous.
Just make sure you sew past the end of that.
Yep.
All right, and again, I'm going to...
And it's looking not so square.
Line the ruler up along
Again,
that
the
edge.
outer edge now.
And along the edge of the center over here.
So we're just taking little pieces
Give
off
that a
each
quick
time.
press.
Now, what we had left there may not fit on it, but it may fit in another block. So
Well,
it
it won't go on this side, I'm pretty sure.
Not
That's a little
quite
short.
on.
I think this is a little too short. I'd save it for later and use it on the first one of another block.
Another block. Yep. You're going to have this great pile of scraps that you can just keep reusing, as long as you're getting matching pieces going around your center.
Right.
Okay.
So we're going to do that again.
Since it's a little more mindless and you're just kind of going around and around, you can put on some really great music and stitch a whole bunch of these at once, because there's a lot in this.
Right.
Finger
So this
press
is
it
really
open.
the only technique that you're going to need to know for these blocks. I'm going to trim that.
Take this out.
Trim that. Give it a quick press. And then the last side, we're ready to go.
Perfect. Just enough on this one so we can finish off the center.
You know, you'll notice I'm using a littler ruler here to trim them off. It's just a lot easier to handle than a big ruler when you're working with small pieces like that. But when you get out here on the outer rows, this is not going to be big enough anymore.
Well, it actually will be, because the only part you're trimming are these tails each time.
Well,
and it's no more than 2 or 3 inches wide.
Well, that's
so
true.
Your little ruler does come in pretty handy. You're going to need the larger one around when it comes to making it, to finishing off the block at the very end, though.
All right.
We always have a great collection of rulers.
Right.
As quilters, we pick up a lot of different sizes over time.
All right, so that's the center. You can see it's similar to that one. Now you're going to continue doing the same thing with 2 more colors and then a round of white pieces, which are also cut
and varied widths.
Random
so
widths.
All the way across.
All right, so I'm going to get rid of this and show you how to trim this. Once you have all of the rounds on there, we need to trim it to 10.5 inches so that it will finish at 10 inches. So I am using a ruler now. This is actually 12.5 inches. And I'm going to lay it on my square. I'm finding all my 10.5 inch marks. Make sure they're all inside the white. And then I'm ready to trim.
And it can kind of float in there. There's a little bit of wiggle room. You're not making them you're making the block square, but the interior is a little off, not so square.
Okay, so now these 2 sides are already trimmed. I'm going to find my 10.5 inch lines on each side.
Yep.
And
Always
line that
double
up.
check yourself. There
Cut
you
my
go.
other 2 sides.
Perfect.
Those are scrap, and there we have a 10.5 inch block.
Not so square.
Right, so those are the large blocks we're going to need for this quilt. Now we need a few small, not so square blocks.
If you look at the outer border and within the sashing, you're seeing something that looks very familiar.
These are basically the same thing as this. You cut your center squares a little bit smaller than this one and put the 1 round on there, just like we did here, but you trim this to 3.5 inches. So this is now square, but these are kind of angled at random angles. So the last thing that we need to do for this quilt is make some strip sets. And you'll need several of these, and from those, well, you're using 2 white strips and 1 red strip in each. From those, we're going to cut segments that are 9 inches wide. Some of these will be used just like they are, and 16 of them will be used to make the star points for those stars that are in the center of the quilt.
There's a lot going on in this quilt, so you start to analyze it, you realize that some of the sashings come together near the center and make these 4 really fun stars.
So this is where you're going to take one of those sets of 4 matching squares that you saved, and you're going to use those for star points on these
End of the
segments of this strip sets. So the first thing you're going to do is cut each of your squares in half diagonally like this. And it doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to make wonky star points. So this is what we're going to make. You can see they're all a little bit different. So
this is where the piecing gets a little unorthodox. We're not used to having points that are so irregular. A lot of times we make 8-point stars and we're used to such precision. This time we're literally going to take our triangle that we cut and we're going to put it right sides together and we're just going to put it on at a fun angle.
Right. You can see each of these is different.
And before you sew, just take a little peek to make sure that you've slid it enough so you can cover this white. So you want it to cover all the way out. And it's going to look strange, I know. But it's fun.
So
we're breaking all the rules today. And then stitch a 1/4 inch seam from the outside, or from the diagonal of your triangle. And
so inside the edge of the triangle.
Right.
You're sort of ignoring the white right now.
Yeah, it's just background. And when we take it out of the machine and open, you'll see
Make sure again.
it covers there.
All right,
And we're going to do the other same thing with the other side. And now these don't overlap in the center. That's how unusual they are.
Or they could.
Well, they could if you wanted to. We'll make this one little on the side here. So we'll put this one out of the way.
And it's fun to play and do different things with them as you're going through. You'll have 16 of these, each of 4 different fabrics.
Yep,
So you want to make them a little bit different, so it's obvious that they're wonky. Check to make sure you got the white covered.
Look how
That's
they
good.
hang off there. Okay,
All
Jean, you
right,
want to give
so-
that a little press?
Well, I am going to trim
them
that
first?
white
Okay.
off before I press it, because I know we're okay.
Yep, we've
And
already
I don't want
checked.
that extra in my seam allowance. So I'm going to trim that white off. And now I am going to give this a quick press. Set my seams.
It's kind of fun every once in a while to do something that breaks all the rules and have a little freedom to design your star points.
So now you can see what those are going to look like. And now I just need to square up the ends. So I'm going to put my ruler along the edge. Trim it here. Trim it there. And then square off the end.
And this is what puts kind of a sparkle to the center of the quilt. You've made so many of the wonky blocks, and it just adds a little more interest to the center.
So, there we go.
The designer was having
There's
fun.
the 4th one, and you can see that when these come together, you'll have the little block that you saved, plus the 4 sets of star points that you made from the squares that you saved. And you can see those. There's 4 of them in the center of the quilt.
Okay.
So now you've made all of the pieces that you need to assemble your quilt. You'll just need to look at your assembly diagram.
Really follow it closely. Realize all those other small wonky blocks are the outside border, so pull out the designated number for each side, put them together, add them to your borders, and finish with some bright red binding. Thanks for joining us.
To see more of our video tutorials, go to our website.